I want to know what you see when you look into the eyes of Trevor Lawrence, when you talk to Dabo Swinney, when you come back with a report. Because right now, this is not a top 4 team. I have not seen very much that indicates that they are on the same level as Alabama, as Ohio State, as LSU, and even Georgia. Of the top 5 or 6 teams, I think Oklahoma's probably the only one that I think Clemson would easily beat. The rest of them, I don't think the way they are playing right now, they are capable. And I know Dabo well enough to know that he's probably going to use this as an advantage. He's probably going to get their attention. But so what? I mean, if you get their attention against Florida State or against all these other schools on the schedule, it's not going to really matter. And if you look at what they've done so far, I mean, A&M was an interesting test, but A&M has not lived up to expectations. Some of these other games they're playing, I just don't think have adequately prepared them. And I'm concerned by the time they get through the easy game that they'll play in the ACC championship game in Charlotte, will they be prepared for the playoffs? And I know Clemson fans hate when people talk like that. They will say, well, look what happened last year. Well, what happened last year is that Clemson had an elite defense. I don't think they have an elite defense this year, and the offense just seems to be a mess.
Paul Finebaum, I'm going to give you one more chance because you just rattled off about 4 or 5 teams you put ahead of the Clemson Tigers, the reigning, defending national champions. Are you saying that if the playoffs were to begin today, you would keep the number 1 ranked team in the nation, the Clemson Tigers, the reigning, defending national champions, you would keep them out of the college football playoff?
Well, Stephen A., if it ended today, I would keep them out. Now, that's somewhat unfair considering that the SEC will start to cannibalize itself.
Right.
And there's no way the SEC will have any more than one undefeated team. Now, I learned my lesson last week trying to argue with you about keeping. I got black eyes and bloody noses all over the place because of that rant that you went on. So I'm going to be a little bit more careful, even given the distance.
He's been the best pitcher in baseball since June.
Strikes out swinging. There's number 10.
He's not a stranger to the big moment.
Right now in Major League Baseball, there is nobody like that guy.
There was a dogfight for 5 games, really.
Bregman's got it. The second one. Altuve to first. Got him double play.
We were tested and we responded well. We had to get hit in the face twice, so I like the way that we answered the bell.
This one is gone. This one on its way. It is gone. Back-to-back home runs for the Astros.
Looking forward to the next series.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance.
Dan Graca sitting in for Stephen A. at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. And if you missed any of my opening segment, go check it out on demand in the Stephen A. Smith podcast, brought to you by the Capital One Quick Silver Card, earning unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase, everywhere. What's in your wallet? And tune into football action this Sunday as the Browns host the Seahawks, presented by Vivid Seats. Pregame begins at noon Eastern on most ESPN radio stations. And as we said, Week 6 in the NFL kicked off last night with the Patriots taking care of business against the New York Giants. Look, and I understand that when something is as successful an entity as the New England Patriots have been for the last 2 decades, okay, they've got Super Bowl trophies. You walk into the facility there, you trip over them. All right, they don't even have room for them anymore. They just keep collecting them on a year-in, year-out basis. And normally in the past, even in the years when the Patriots won Super Bowls, if you think about it, generally speaking, they would get off to a slow start. You know, you'd have those slip-ups early on, and you'd present the public, right, the angry mob, with the opportunity to write the Patriots off and say, oh, they're done, this is it. It's finally over. You don't have to worry about Brady. You don't have to worry about Belichick anymore. It's over with. And then they would always pick up steam midway point of the season, then on into December, and, of course, into January. They'd play their best football, and then they'd have the last laugh when it's all said and done. Well, now you have 2019, and instead of them having a slip-up early in the year or having a bad loss or 2, they get off to a 6-0 start. They're just running roughshod over everybody they step on the field with. Last night, 6th game of the year, the first time they finally surrendered a touchdown pass from the opposition, the Daniel Jones to Golden Tate. So everybody, I think, wants this end to happen, unless you're a Patriots fan. So, of course, now there's these holes that people are trying to poke into the 6-0 start that, well, it's not good. They're not playing anybody that good. I mean, yeah, they're the Patriots. Yeah, they're good. But are they really a juggernaut here? Right? I mean, they as good as their record? Because, I mean, you look at who they played. They played the Steelers team in week 1. Yeah, they annihilated them. And yeah, Ben Roethlisberger was still the quarterback. So I think you give them credit for that one. Then they played the Dolphins, the Jets. The win in Buffalo was a slugfest, but yet they still found a way to win the football game. You know, Buffalo's not bad. Buffalo's got a good defense. They will fight you. They will make you work. Then they go to play Washington, and then they have a depleted Giants team last night. You know something? I'm a big proponent of you got to play who's on your schedule. I really and truly am. And I know that sounds simplistic here, but what more do you want the Patriots to do? Really, I mean, what more do you want them to prove? Not the fact that they've won all these Super Bowls. All right, the closest game that they've played this year was probably against the best team they played in the Buffalo Bills, which, by the way, on the road against a good football team, yet they found a way to win. They kind of beat Buffalo at their own game. It didn't have to be a high-scoring affair. They went out there and they punched them in the mouth just as well, and they kept that thing to a premium and found a way to win. Because that defense is playing extraordinary for Bill Belichick and company. I thought before the season they had as much depth on the defensive side of the ball as they've had in quite some time. And that just gives a guy like Bill Belichick more opportunity, more flexibility, different packages, schemes, and whatnot to shuttle guys in and out of the lineup. Remember, the way that they scout players up there in New England, the way that they build that roster, it's all about positional flexibility. It's all about good football players. I mean, we've heard Bill Belichick say this for 2 decades. You know, they just want good football players. Remember way back when he would do some things like play Troy Brown, who was a wide receiver, play him in the secondary at corner just because they were so depleted because of injury? Good football players. You're not tied down to position A. If we need you to play a different position for us, play a different role for us, we are going to ask you to do that. But now they have a wealth of guys on that football team, and they're all making plays. Now, last night they were banged up a little bit. You know, Belichick even alluded to it after the game, saying, you know what, we pretty much had to keep it as vanilla as possible. We were pretty much playing only one scheme late in that game just because we didn't have enough healthy bodies. You know, you're only allowed to dress X amount of guys for each game. It's not like you could go to the bullpen and call on guys and say, hey, you know, go put a uniform on, grab your helmet, we need you. Can't do it. You got to make do with what you have there on the field. So maybe if they are playing a different team last night, you know, they maybe could have exposed a little bit of those holes in the Patriots defense. You could have saw that, but it didn't. And they found ways to get a win. Now, on the flip side, you look at Brady. Brady missed some throws last night. We know that. Okay, he's missed some throws this year, and this is something that's been happening for the last couple of seasons. And he's 42 years old. You know, Tom Brady, as much of a Superman as he appears to be, Tom Brady is not going to play forever. That is the breaking news headline on this Friday. Tom Brady will at some point stop playing football. I don't know when, but it's going to happen. And eventually his skills are going to start to erode. You know, you look at a couple of quarterbacks that had really, really good careers, Hall of Fame careers. You know, go back to Peyton Manning, for example. All right, he went to the Denver Broncos to start his second act as a National Football League QB. Coming off of all those neck surgeries, there was a lot of uncertainty as to whether or not he was going to be able to perform at the same rate that he did when he was a member of the Indianapolis Colts. He goes out to Denver, and he starts rewriting the record books out there, having phenomenal success. And then all of a sudden, he couldn't throw the ball more than 10 yards, it seemed like. He was a noodle arm out there. He was really, and it just happened overnight like that. And yeah, I know his final act, Super Bowl 50, the Broncos were able to win, but they won that Super Bowl in spite of Peyton Manning. They won that Super Bowl based on that defense. Von Miller, Elvis Dumervil, those guys, right? Manning was kind of just like along for the ride. He wasn't that explosive, put the game on my shoulders type quarterback that we were so used to seeing throughout his historic career. Another guy is Brett Favre. You know, Brett Favre, remember towards the end, he was playing the retirement game. Do I want to play? Do I not want to play? Which we were all getting tired of. But when he went to Minnesota after his brief stopover with the Jets, he had an MVP caliber season that first year with the Vikings. Took him to the NFC Championship game. And then he came back for a second season in 2010, and then all of a sudden, the bottom fell out. Remember, he got beaten up. He got hit around. He had to actually miss a game, which brought an end to that epic consecutive start streak, right? It just goes. It's going to happen for Tom Brady. And as I said, you know what? We might be seeing signs of that already. Not maybe small, but we're seeing signs. Not as crisp as we're used to seeing. Now, that could also be the case that he's missing some pieces that he's accustomed to having around him. You know, Rob Gronkowski last night was joking around on the Fox set as opposed to running routes for Tom Brady. You know, Julian Edelman has had a lot of wear and tear over the last couple of years. Injuries, concussions, you name it. Yeah, he's still reliable. Yeah, he's still good. You know, Josh Gordon got hurt in that game last night. Why do you think, all right, they're never going to come out and admit this. Why do you think the Patriots even bothered to waste their time with Antonio Brown when they did? Because they realize this quarterback, who might be the greatest to ever play, but is 42 years old, and he probably needs a little bit more help now than he did, let's say, 5, even 10 years ago. So having an Antonio Brown was going to put a less of a strain on a Tom Brady and to help him go out there and make some plays with the offense. Am I concerned about this Patriot team? Heck no. They're still going to win the AFC East. They're going to waltz to a division championship. They're going to have this division won probably by week 14, week 15. They're going to get home field in the AFC playoffs, and they'll probably be sitting there at least in the AFC championship game again, at the very least. And chances are it's going to be in Foxborough, so good luck. It's a machine. It's not going to last forever. Eventually, you're going to have to take that machine into the shop, and it's not going to be able to be repaired. But right now, it's a machine. 888-SAY-ESPN, our telephone number, 888-729-3776. Remember, Tim Kirkton joins me. Coming up at 2, we will preview the Final Four in Major League Baseball. Dan Graca is in for Stephen A. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show. It's ESPN Radio and ESPN News.